Steelers Nation, you know those moments when a game forces you to rethink everything you thought you understood about this team? That clash with Cincinnati was exactly that kind of afternoon. It was not a masterpiece of possession dominance, but those extra 10 seconds the Steelers held the ball summed up something bigger than raw numbers. It reflected a shift, a spark, the beginning of an offense finally trying to act like it knows what it wants to become instead of just scrambling to survive drive after drive. All week long, the big question hovering over the building was whether this group would finally commit to an identity instead of drifting from one crisis to the next. When you face a defense that has struggled as much as Cincinnati's, it might sound odd to stress the importance of structure instead of simply chasing points. But that was the whole point. This offense was overdue for a moment to breathe, settle, run with purpose, and build itself into something repeatable instead of chaotic. That was the drumbeat echoing around the city before kickoff. Run the ball, stay on schedule, and carve out the version of the Steelers that fans have been waiting to see. Now, the start was far from glamorous. The early snaps looked jittery, the kind of possessions where you could feel the quarterback pressing instead of relaxing into the rhythm of the game. Third downs were a mess, with too many attempts to dodge collapsing pockets instead of taking the straightforward play that keeps the chains moving. Cincinnati clearly came and determined to rattle him, sending pressure from every angle, trying to force a mistake before the Steelers even had a chance to settle into their approach. When your quarterback keeps feeling bodies flying at him, it becomes hard to stay poised enough to take what the defense gives you. That was the early story, but not the ending. Everything shifted when the second half rolled around and the offense came back out with a different energy. The change under center added a calmness the unit desperately needed. Suddenly, the Steelers were playing the exact style that fans have been begging for all season. A steady run game, smart throws to the tight ends, shots downfield when space opened up, and a commitment to controlling the clock instead of letting the game's pace control them. Watching the offense open up the middle of the field, watching receivers work soft spots, watching the run game actually breathe for once, it felt like the team was stepping into the identity it has been chasing for months. The wildest part is how little time the offense actually had to work with. Defensive scores took entire possessions off the board, meaning the Steelers had only 2 real offensive drives in the second half. Just 2. And those 2 drives stretched out to more than 13 minutes combined. Across those plays, the offense looked like it finally understood how powerful it can be when it commits to physical football instead of skating around the edges of an opponent's defense. 27 plays, more than 150 total yards, and a sense of control that completely changed the tone of the game. That is the blueprint this team has been searching for. It does not matter who is taking the snaps. What matters is that the offense looks like it is dictating the story instead of reacting to it. It cannot be another cycle of first down rush, second down scramble, third down desperation. There has to be a flow, the sense that the team is choosing its own path instead of getting pushed around by whatever the defense happens to show. For months now, the message has been simple. This team needs to play big. Use size. Use strength. Put the massive playmakers on the field and make opponents deal with it. Line up heavy and run the ball with conviction, mixing in those throws that punish defenses for creeping up. If your quarterback is built to stand tall in the pocket, then let him do exactly that. And if your offensive line has struggled, then lean into a style that lifts some of that burden off their shoulders. Big formations, big bodies, big identity. That is what unlocks everything else. And the truth is, the quarterback question is secondary to the identity question. Once the injured starter returns, he will need to embrace this approach the same way. If the backup steps in again, the same rules apply. The system cannot change every time a wrist, ankle, or shoulder flares up. What matters is that the offense has a foundation that works regardless of who is throwing the passes. When you build around physicality, time of possession, balance, and confidence, you give yourself a chance every single week. This style helps the defense rest. It protects a coaching staff that has not always thrived with rapid mid-game changes. It keeps the scoreboard manageable. And more importantly, it gives the team a roadmap for more than just the next opponent. is not about Chicago alone. It is not about Buffalo alone. It is not about the seemingly endless heavyweight rounds with Baltimore that feel like they happen every year with everything on the line. It is about understanding that the roster is built to compete now and that the goal should be bigger than scraping by. And when you look at how this roster is constructed, you start to realize that aiming low does not make sense for a team with this combination of veteran leadership and young talent hungry to prove itself. This is not a rebuilding group quietly preparing for some faraway future. This is a team stocked with players who know how to win, who have been in pressure games, who understand the grind of a long season and the significance of seizing momentum before it slips away. When the core of your roster leans experienced, you have to think bigger, push harder, and shape an identity built to withstand the chaos of a full season. That is why this commitment to a physical, clock-controlling offense is not just a stylistic preference, but a necessity. Every time the Steelers step onto the field, leaning into that bruising mentality, you can feel the entire sideline settle. The defense gets to breathe, special teams get consistent spacing, and the offense stops living snap to snap on thin margins. Instead of frantic improvisation, there is structure. Instead of panic on third down, there is confidence. Instead of wasted possessions, there is sustained pressure that wears opponents down. It is the type of football that makes teams dread the fourth quarter because they know the Steelers still have gas in the tank while others begin to fade. And this ties into another layer of the season that has been unfolding quietly in the background: the long-term search for the next franchise quarterback. That conversation has hovered around the team like a never-ending cloud, shaping decisions at the trade deadline, guiding roster moves, and fueling debate among fans. It is impossible to ignore, but it also cannot define the entire identity of the team in real time. The front office has made it clear that stockpiling assets for the future is part of the plan, that rushing into the wrong decision now could set everything back for years. So while anticipation builds around the future, the team still needs a present-day formula that does not depend on waiting for some mythical perfect answer. That is where the frustration from some fans comes into play. There is this bubbling excitement about young players on the roster, especially the ones who arrived with hype from powerhouse college programs. When a player comes in from a school that everyone watches on national stages, it becomes easy for fans to latch onto the idea of potential. They have seen the highlight throws, the big game moments, the swagger, and they want to see if that spark can ignite at the professional level. It is a natural reaction when the fan base wants hope, wants energy, wants a glimpse into what the future might look like. But the reality is that developing at this level is not fantasy football. It takes time, practice, actual reps, and the kind of live action that cannot be replicated when a player is stuck on the scout team, mimicking opponents instead of learning his own system. It is understandable for fans to be curious, but that curiosity often turns into pressure on a player who has barely had the chance to find his footing. And when questions start flying about his practice performance, it becomes almost comical because those reps are not even designed to measure his individual ability. They are scripted looks meant to give the defense a preview of what they will see on game day. It is acting, not development. That is why the conversations sometimes need a grounding reminder. The excitement is fine. The curiosity is fine. But the urgency, the desperation, that is where things get shaky. Not every young quarterback needs to be thrown into the fire simply to satisfy curiosity, especially when the team is openly pursuing a longer-term solution through the draft or future acquisitions. There is value in letting a player grow without every snap turning into a referendum on the franchise's direction. There is value in patience, even when fans hate hearing that word. Still, the reactions are part of what makes football culture so unique. Every fan base has its obsessions, its debates, its hot-button topics that turn a slow Tuesday into a battleground of opinions. And sometimes those debates get loud, dramatic, and even a little ridiculous. That is fine. That is passion. But inside the building, the team cannot make decisions based on noise outside. They have to evaluate based on real information, not on highlight reels from 2 years ago or speculation fueled by frustration after a tough loss. And sometimes it means giving a gentle nudge back at the noise, A reminder that not every conversation needs to be taken with life or death seriousness. Because at the end of the day, the mission remains the same. Keep building toward the version of this team that can legitimately contend. Protect the defense by controlling the clock. Protect the offense by leaning into its strengths. Protect the young players by not rushing them into situations they are not ready for. Protect the future by refusing to burn assets in panicked, mid-season decisions. And protect the present by focusing on the formula that gave the team the most complete half of football they have played all season. When you replay those two extended second-half drives from a game, you can almost feel the rhythm this team has been missing. The offensive line finally pushing the line of scrimmage instead of being shoved backward. The running backs attacking gaps with confidence, not hesitation. The tight ends creating mismatches in short yardage situations. The receivers using leverage and tempo to win their routes. The quarterback executing with clarity instead of improvisation. That is the style that turns long drives into psychological blows for opponents. That is the version of the Steelers that can compete with anyone on their schedule. And this becomes especially important when the schedule is packed with opponents who thrive on chaos. Chicago, Buffalo, Baltimore, and the late-season battles that always seem to define the standings. These are games where one mistake can flip the entire narrative. These are games where time of possession becomes a weapon, where physical football turns into strategy as much as execution. When you can force a team like Buffalo to watch from the sideline for long stretches, you change everything. When you can keep Baltimore's defense on the field for 14 play drives, you chip away at their strength. When you can walk into a packed stadium and set the tempo yourself, you take the air out of the crowd before they even realize what is happening. That is why thinking big is not arrogance. It is simply acknowledging what the team is built to do when it plays with purpose. Every season brings uncertainty, adversity, and moments where the plan gets shaken. But the teams that survive those storms are the ones rooted in an identity strong enough to withstand them. And for these Steelers, that identity has been hiding in plain sight, waiting to be embraced fully instead of only in flashes. The blueprint is there. The film from that second half proves it. The roster fits it. The future benefits from it. The present demands it. And all of that brings us right back to the heart of the conversation. This team does not need to chase trends or reinvent itself every week. It needs to lean into the version of itself that controls games, limits mistakes, and maximizes the strengths of its roster. It needs to stop worrying about what every other team is doing and start dictating its own terms with consistency. It needs to keep putting its biggest players on the field, keep pounding the football, keep trusting the scheme, and keep building the type of offense that can go toe-to-toe with anyone on the schedule. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. A storm seems to be brewing in Pittsburgh, and Steelers fans are holding their breath. The latest whispers from inside the locker room have sent shockwaves across the fan base. Aaron Charles Rodgers, the quarterback whose arm and poise have defined countless games for the Steelers, is reportedly on his way out. The news, though unconfirmed by official sources, has already left supporters speechless, their usual chants replaced by a stunned silence that echoes through social media and local sports bars alike. Rodgers, known for his calm under pressure and pinpoint accuracy, has been a cornerstone for Pittsburgh, guiding the team through highs and lows with a presence that few can match. To imagine Heinz Field without him calling the plays is almost unthinkable. Rumors suggest that negotiations between Rodgers and team management have reached a critical point, with sources hinting that both sides might be preparing for a dramatic parting. While the reasons remain shrouded in mystery, speculation is rampant. Could it be contract disagreements, personal ambitions, or simply a desire for a fresh challenge? Every fan has a theory, and each one seems more heartbreaking than the last. The city is abuzz with speculation, from casual spectators to die-hard season ticket holders. Local sports talk shows are dedicating entire hours to dissecting what Rodgers' potential exit could mean, not just for the team's strategy, but for the very identity of the Steelers. Some insiders hint at trade talks or sudden shifts in team leadership that could be influencing this sudden shakeup. Meanwhile, social media has become a digital shrine to the quarterback, flooded with messages ranging from disbelief to desperation, as fans cling to memories of miraculous drives and game-winning passes. Even beyond Pittsburgh, the news is creating ripples across the NFL. Analysts, former players, and commentators are weighing in, debating where Rodgers might land next, and how this could reshape the league's quarterback landscape. For now, the reality is bitter and the speculation relentless. The Steelers could be on the verge of losing a legend. Until official word arrives, the rumor mill will keep spinning, and the city that has cheered for Aaron Charles Rodgers through countless gridiron battles remains frozen, collectively holding its breath for what comes next. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.